I reckon we have an epidemic on our hands for young, ambitious men, or just ambitious men in general. I would love to be a spokesperson on men's mental health, especially for those men who are more ambitious. They want more for their lives. They always have known they want more for their lives. And I think now in 2025, we're so much more in tune with what success should look like for us. And I'm speaking from experience because that has been me my entire life. I've always wanted success. I never knew what it looked like, but I've always wanted it. And the things that I thought success was, now that I'm 34, have turned out to be a lot less important to me, but I've still achieved. And I want to talk about that journey because I think the epidemic that we have right in front of us right now is the pendulum swing of like the direction that the economy is going, and the economy of personal development, not the economy of everything else that you think of an economy as. And what I mean by that is we've created and we've bred, especially due to social media, a really strong wave of and like a push that for young men and for ambitious men. They don't even have to be young. It's just men who want more for themselves, to show what like the sparkly material things are that you should want and you should have to be able to be valid and to have some sort of status in the world. And don't get me wrong, I think those things are nice, and there's elements of those things I still want and I still crave and I still work towards. And they could look like the things that are like the business class flights, the supercars, the really nice houses, the luxury trips and escapes, the women, and all those things that us testosterone fueled men want. But I think the epidemic is that we've bred this culture where introversion and escaping from reality has become this new noble quest for us to follow, to feel like we're actually progressing in the thing that we want, which is the success that we want. And I feel like that is really counterintuitive to everything that actually success looks like and should be. Because at the end of the day, I think it's nice to have things, but it's nice to have things and pursue those things as who you are and as the person that you are. And really what men and ambitious men are craving is the connection to something through the lens of these achievements. And I know it to be true because I've gone through this personal situation most recently, where I've discovered and I've really looked in the dark corners of myself to realize that all the things that I pursued to get the money, the girls, the status, the body, all that shit, I chose to pursue those things so I could feel more valid, so I could feel more noble, so I felt like I had somewhere to fit. So I felt like that I was part of a group of people that were more applauded. And through that journey, I realized that I had pushed and suppressed down who I actually truly was. And that actually disconnected me from the people, the experiences, and the things that I truly wanted out of life, and that I really was deep down actually searching for. And I think you see it now more so than ever. And I think it's really pushed hard by people who we actually look up to. The monk mode stuff, like where we go to hide, to work on ourselves so that we can come out the other side a better version of ourselves. And while I think there's elements of like a monk mode situation where you go dark and you come back better, like I think there is healthy aspects to that. But to the root of ourselves, to the baseline of what makes us human, we need connection. And it's okay to connect to something that's external to us, that is a development part of us, that is like a thing to go on and try and do good business and make money and connect with those aspects. But the connection I'm actually talking about is like the connection to who you are. And I know it sounds really woo-woo. And like if you knew me a year ago even, like you'd be like I was completely not against all of those things, but I was starting to learn how those things integrated into like the development journey. And the realization that I just want to connect and feel love in aspects of friendship and intimacy and family and those things that are the most important parts. It's taken me this long to fucking work it out, but I'm only just learning this now. And I think when we disappear to reappear better, it's actually creating this, and I think Chris Williamson talks about this a lot, and he articulates this so much better than me, but it's like this quest for, some noble quest for this like better version of us that exists in the darkness. And it's counterintuitive. It doesn't feel right. And if you're someone who's feeling like you need to disappear to reappear better, and you're wearing the badge of honor that's like introversion, and you're wearing the badge of honor that's like disconnection from other humans so I can come back leading the pack, or whatever that fucking saying is, and I've talked about this before, then you might find through that journey, you might find that you'll get aspects that are definitely better. But when you re-emerge after the monk mode process, or the silent process, or disconnecting yourself, not talking to people, you actually find you need to integrate back into society. And society is full of people out there that are doing things that you need to actually interact with to do the things that you want to do. And what I mean by that is, let's take business as an example. Like, if you want to make a bunch of money, other people have your money. It's that simple. And you need to sell to them something to be able to get money in exchange. And who am I to tell you this? Well, last year I own my own online business. I do digital marketing. I work from here. I have time and space to do whatever I like. I did a bit over $500,000 last year for myself. And I'm only saying that because I think unless you have some sort of credibility, then you're probably just talking at your ass. So I have some knowledge in business. I understand it to an extent. And I think I've done quite well for myself, and it's only been quite recent. But the money hasn't made me happy. And that's why I've gone through this process of wondering why, when I disconnected from all that stuff, why did I come out the other side? And I'm like, okay, where's all that happiness I thought there would be when I fucking did this process? When I built the body, when I got the girls, when I made the money, when I could have what I wanted, and I got what I wanted, everything that I wanted, I manifested. I was like, where's that happiness I thought I'd have? Don't get me wrong, I'm not unhappy, and I'm not a sad person and depressed and all those sorts of things. But the fulfillment piece to why I thought I was doing this was missing. And if you're a man who's like doing this process, I'm not saying don't do it. And this is the part that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. You have to go through it to learn it. But there's a quote by Einstein, and I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna sound real fucking smart by reading this. Listen to this. And this is one that I stole off Chris Williamson. He said it, but the rational mind is I already butchered it. The rational mind is a faithful servant, and the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. And the way that we rationalize things to make them make sense in our mind to why they need to happen versus what's actually intuitive and happening inside of us, like physiologically in our body. You know, when you make a decision and you can tell that doesn't sit quite right with you, but you make the choice because you think that that will gain us status, money, whatever the thing is that's outside of us we think we need. And this is the game, because you can have both. You can have who you are, and you can have the success, and you can have the connection that brings all those things together. You can have all of that all in the one piece without having to sacrifice who you are to get it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't push, and you shouldn't, like, if you need to have focus, like, I'm not saying don't have focus. But what I am saying is that there's an aspect of there's an aspect of the part of you that is intuitively and authentically who you are is going to move you far further forward towards fulfillment as you achieve those things. And I think it's so common now to feel like you're actually on this linear path of progression by disconnecting yourself from what's really actually important. And here's the kicker. You might have to go through that process. It might have to take a certain amount of time for you to do the disconnection part. And if you're in it, keep going, because it could be something that teaches you the strongest lesson, but you can feel if it's not quite right. And that quote by Einstein is really important, because I think, like, he knew back then. He knew. And Like, I just feel like a complete fucking smooth brain, even like learning this so far into my journey when Einstein fucking was already telling me. There's another part that I wrote down here that I wanted to read. Nobody sees the personal price that a man has led to pay to get to the position that he's in. People only see the observable metrics like holidays, flying business class, time, freedom, money. And we've created a society where the observable metrics are the currency that we're driven by. I wrote that, so pat on the back to me. But those things are nice to haves. Those things are a stamp of approval on, hey, you did it, well done. They won't make you happy though. And if you've gone on the journey that I'm currently on right now and you've achieved some form of success in that way and you're wondering why there's still a piece missing, the part that you might need to look at is going to be everything that's internal. It's everything that's inside. It's not anything external. It's not anything on the outside. And I think a lot of men are finding it really, really hard. Men, whoever's ambitious in trying to like achieve these goals, they're finding it hard because they're wondering why, hey, I'm making myself better here. I'm doing all the right stuff. I'm healthy, I'm driven, I'm motivated. I don't associate with the partying, and there's a whole lot less of that going on these days because of the movement that we find ourselves in. And they're finding it hard. They're finding it to be like depression in a lot of cases and sadness, and they're using that as fuel to fuel the same thing that they're currently doing and doubling down on that and hurting themselves in the process. And if you're finding you're in that position, then there's an element that requires you to be connected to the feeling that's inside your body telling you what's right and what isn't. And it's not just the feeling, but it's like we need other people. We need other connection. We need to be driven by things that matter to us. And you only find those things by asking yourself those questions. I think that's pretty much it. I think I read all the smart quotes that I was going to read. I think I had one more thing that I wanted to say on that, which was that men aren't incentivized for being emotionally vulnerable and open. And I think that's like the nail in the coffin. It's like, it's so difficult to know how to be intuitive, in tune with yourself without sacrificing absolutely everything about who you are and making yourself completely open and vulnerable to be hurt. And that's why we do this pursuit in the first place. And look, man, I feel ya. If you're going through that process, I really feel ya, because it is the hardest thing that you'll ever do, this work on yourself to understand it. And if you're in the middle of it, just keep going. Just keep your ear to the ground and just stay authentic. Stay true to yourself, best you possibly can. If you feel like something is a bit off, ask yourself some questions, but you don't need to beat yourself up over it. And just keep going. And if you're just starting, like, just hustle. If you're just starting, just hustle. Don't even really consider what I'm saying with this. You're not in the game enough for this to make any sense just yet. If you're just getting going and you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna run through every wall that I possibly can, perfect. Do that. You'll find yourself as you go, and just take pieces as you move through that process. But if you're a bit more established and you've pushed through on the other side of it, and you're like, the money's cool, like you've done a few of the experiences, like you've all those parts, the status parts you've done, and you're kind of feeling like, fuck, like something's missing, then this is the part where I would 110% recommend you to start really doing some intrinsic, deep work on yourself. Because what you may find is there's parts of you don't want to look at that are deep and they hurt. And your life will change by how much you can accept those parts, but also how deep you can go on them and work on them. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. You may need something that makes you hit rock bottom again emotionally, but for the most part, the dark corners of who you are is where you need to start shining that light, shining that flashlight. Therapy is a really great way to help get in tune with those things and picking the right therapist. But that'll be a video for another day. I hope you got some value out of this. That's it. Like and fucking subscribe or whatever.